Peggy Hall back with you from the healthyamerican.org. I'm not in my normal filming location. I know the light's a little off, but I promised you that I was going to share with you my checklist on how to spot a PSY-OP. Now, they have been going on for a long, long time, long before I've even been alive. Yet I've been able to spot these in the last several years, and you probably have as well. And they are coming at us again and again because the bad guys want to push their narrative and they want to make it easier for people like you and me who are truth seekers and freedom loving individuals to give in, give up, and give over our rights and freedom. And I am not going to do it. I've been standing strong on this channel since 2020 when I helped you learn all about the fake, phony, and fraudulent emergencies that these governors inflicted in every state. Being in California, it was the worst state. It was shut down the earliest and the longest. And a lot of people woke up during that hogwash, as I call it. So what I want to talk about is kind of the calling cards of these orchestrated events. And I also first want to share a couple of, well, this came in not as an email, but as a comment on YouTube. And I want to thank all of my Healthy Americans for sending me emails, comments, participating on the Substack. And let me share my screen. This one was on a video that was called, "Why Am I Questioning These Incidents?" And from Brock says, "Thank you, Peggy, for your show. It's so true that you teach us how to critically think. I would think by now, being over 50, I would have this down, but the Michigan incident was probably the final wake-up call for me to trust no news. I've been vocal in regards to Erica Kirk, and it's shocking how people just want to think she's so perfect. I do believe it's our job to expose evil, just like you said. Thank you for exposing so much." Now, I think this part's really important. For a little while, I didn't watch you because I was upset over Trump and Elon, meaning upset over my coverage of Trump and Elon, pointing out their wrong actions. And Brock writes, "I'm not sure why. I guess I just wanted to believe that there were good people caring about America. I am over it now and appreciate even more." So that's why I do this, friends. Trust me. I take no delight in sort of taking one for the team and going through these headlines and really catching these different things that are on my checklist in terms of how to spot a PSYOP. Now, I would like you to leave me a comment right now as you're watching and tell me what it is that you see in these orchestrated events that make you go, "Oh, wow, this is just not adding up." So I've got a whole laundry list. They're not in any particular order. I'm also going to have a little slideshow for some of these points to really sort of illustrate them. And before I do that, I wanted to just give a real brief overview. And this came in from a Healthy American, because last week I said, send me your emails about what you see, what is on your PSYOPs checklist. So she wrote in and said, "Peggy, this is a formula or a template that they use again and again. So recognizing the signs, that's what's critical." And she writes, "They like using a very attractive female or youth or children or babies or elderly or handicapped or pets or anything that will tug at your heartstrings. It's usually not a grown man or an ugly person." She's saying in terms of the victims. "Then keep an eye out on the hysterical rhetoric." And I take this to mean like the newscasters and also the victims and the witnesses will say, "It was violent, it was senseless, it was tragic." And they'll give such outlandish statements. And this is my commentary here, that these statements are intended to put you in a state of fear, an emotional state, because when you're in an emotional state, it's very difficult for you to think clearly. That's why I often like to go back and give information and evidence from these events that happened months or even years ago, because you can see them with more of a critical eye. Your emotions have subsided. You probably have started to realize these things don't really start to add up. But when you're right in the midst of it, it's hard to discern. I have people that I know have critical thinking skills and high levels of discernment, and they fell for the Charlie Kirk incident because it was on social media and they saw it. And the fear and the shock and the awe did its work as intended. So it's not, I don't really fault them, because That's exactly what the bad guys intend, to literally stun you so you can't think clearly. And I've given some tips previously. Let me just give you a couple and then I'll get back to this email. And that's to don't look at the images, but just listen to the audio if you're doing any digging or investigating. And that way you can pick up on some of the words and phrases and you're not going to be assaulted by the images. And then you can flip that around and instead of listening to it, turn the sound off and just see what you see in those images. Where are they? Does it look like they're in a studio? When you were listening to it, did it sound like they were outside? Was there ambient noise? Did it sound echoey like I might right now where I am? Or did it sound authentic? Look at the images. Does it look like a green screen? If you see trees blowing in the background, what about the people? Do you see any evidence that they are literally outside? So these are just a couple of things to do that will help you bring down your emotional response. Also, give yourself a little time and don't look at all of those things right off the bat. I'm going to give you a lot more, but those just came to mind. So the Healthy American writes in her email, what they want to do is disengage your brain and pull on your heart. Another facet of this, she writes, is energy harvesting our collective grief. It's almost palpable. And she talks about how that's used in the occult world because they can feed on our negative energy. Now, whether or not you believe that, it is true that negative energy can feed negative energy. Haven't you ever been around people and one person starts complaining and everybody starts complaining? I try to do the opposite. I try to uplift people, but we have all experienced that sense, kind of that collective trauma. She goes on to write, terrifying viewers with bloody or shocking imagery and content is the basis of trauma-based mind control. They can insert their programming when you are distracted and disabled by their inflicted trauma. And that includes the climate crisis, the gun horrors, terrorists, so many things that were being shown on the news. She says, learn to recognize the signs because you are about to be had. Now, my own commentary, I don't know about you, but I don't like to have the wool pulled over my eyes. Worse yet is to have the wool pulled over my eyes and leave it there. I would rather look at the evidence and information that people are bringing and then say, oh my gosh, I almost fell for it. In my view, that is a much stronger position. It's more empowering and you're not feeling powerless and hopeless and helpless when you're just going along with it and maybe you're too embarrassed to say, oh my gosh, they had me. I just brought you that comment a moment ago from a Healthy American who said, I didn't believe you on the Trump and Elon stuff, but now I see what you're talking about. Trust me, I've gotten a lot of pushback when I talked about tariffs, when I talked about Elon Musk and Doge and the Vatican and certain pastors and the non-denominational churches. I'm an equal opportunity exposer. All right. I'm not out to get anybody. I'm out to get the truth. So she goes on to say, then comes the grift and the fix. There are GoFundMe drives, the tax relief pleas, the product placements, and they all of the ghouls race to get their fingers in the pie. The fix is in. You'll know it when the policies are rolled out immediately, when actually they should take months or years to coordinate and compile. For example, the Patriot Act after 9/11. So I want to share with you now some of the things that have come to my mind. And this is my How to Spot a PSY-OP checklist. You can get this in writing over at peggyhall.substack.com. You don't have to do the www, just peggyhall.substack.com. And of course, I'm broadcasting this right now, so it takes about 24 hours for me to get that Substack written and published and get that out to you. Remember, I'm not like Candace Owens with a whole stable of producers and script writers, and I've just got a table lamp here and my computer camera. I'm very low tech, very low budget, and it's just me doing this with some help from my moderators here, and also Olivia helps me with some emails and correspondence, but I don't have anybody producing the show but me. So, and I like it that way. So here we go, in no particular order. First of all, when I see a story that's getting an extraordinary amount of media and airplay, more so than it really warrants, that makes me question. And I'm thinking, why are they pushing this story again and again, especially in far-flung places that don't really affect us? So as My Healthy American wrote, the media uses words like horrific and tragic. The reporters are actually feeding these words to the witnesses and victims, saying, oh, you must be terrified. This must be so scary for you. And they just drum that in over and over again. Let me give you a caveat. You're probably smart enough to not need this, but for those who may not be familiar with the work that I do, exposing evil and reading between the lies, as I say, let me also state that yes, there are legitimate, genuine tragedies that occur. There are accidents, there are plane crashes, there are bridges that collapse. I've done coverage on so many of these things. And there are also tragically murders. You may even know someone who lost their life that way. I certainly have. There are definitely tragedies that befall all of us. I am not minimizing that. In fact, my heart goes out to those who are sincerely bereaved and grieving. I've done dozens of videos on this channel called Life After Loss to help those get through their grief. And I've actually had private webinars where people have come on, and some of my participants are so broken up by what they went through, in some cases months and years ago, they can't even share in words what they went through. So when I see these witnesses and victims that show up on the screen, dry-eyed with the duper's delight, which is that little hint of a smile and a twinkle in their eye because they're in front of the cameras, that really is so infuriating to me, because I know true loss. I know true sorrow. I know what it is like to suffer pain of loss and unrelenting grief. So when I have these fakes, phonies, and frauds coming on TV and doing it, I'm not going to stand for it. So yes, there are legitimate incidents that occur. That's why I've got a checklist here for you, so you can start to put the pieces together, connect the clots, as I like to say, using a cooties term, and come to your own conclusions as to whether or not what you are seeing is the genuine article or whether it is an orchestrated, manufactured event. So the other thing that I see a lot in these is there is tons of conflicting, confusing information. There's one shooter. No, there's two. He was in the woods. Well, he was on the beach. He had a gun. Oh, no, it was a knife. Now, it's also true that in the early times of developing stories, not all the information is out. But look in the case of Charlie Kirk. This is weeks after that event, and people like Candace Owens and others are still pushing the assassination narrative, even though no bullet was ever recovered. Friends, no bullet, no blood splatter on the screen, no blood trail when he was hastily carried off, which also was very strange because his team immediately, almost as if it was rehearsed, grabbed him and carried him off. Now, I've been in life-saving in terms of literally at a swimming pool. So I'm not a first responder by any means, but I have gone through CPR courses. I've taught lifeguarding and life-saving and so forth. So first of all, you need to assess the situation. Then you have somebody call 911. You check for a pulse. You see if they're breathing. You actually do your immediate attention right there on the spot. You don't immediately carry the people off. And if his bodyguards realized that they were being shot at, or Charlie was being shot at, wouldn't they have drawn their weapons and make sure that there were no more shots? I'm sure you can see that. But he was scooped up so quickly and dragged away. That also doesn't add up with reality. And if it does, these are pretty poor first responders and bodyguards, because they could be creating more damage to the person. You don't know, they don't exactly know unless they were told or it was rehearsed what exactly had happened. You've seen the videos, I'm sure, on YouTube where they've shown that that bullet, which is, yes, several inches, 3 or 4 inches long in its casing, that can't be found. I mean, it's not like a little tiny BB. This is a huge piece of the puzzle that's never been recovered, which means there's been no ballistics report. There are hunters on YouTube that say that the head would have been severed from the body. It would have been mayhem, gory everywhere, if there was an area drop. And they covered it over so quickly. There was no police tape around there. There was no scene that was cordoned off for an investigation. In fact, what they did is they poured concrete over it. So these are the things that just don't add up. And that's part of the clue. It's like these things just don't add up. Why was there no medical report released? Well, Peggy, that's private. Well, why was it released at Shady Nook? And why was it released in all of these other things that we've been seeing? Why not in the Charlie Kirk incident? Why was there no doctor coming out and making a statement? Why was the death reported by Trump and there never was a cause of death released? Why was there no burial? Why is there no gravesite? So there are so many questions that people will try to justify an answer, but the preponderance of evidence, or dare I say, lack of evidence to prove that this happened, is compelling. And remember, you and I don't have to prove anything. I actually don't have to come to a conclusion as to what happened. But I can look at the evidence and I can see that if there was no bullet and no blood and no body and no burial, there was no shooter and no assassin and no murder and no killing. So those that now are still spinning these webs of other narratives are doing so to confuse you and to keep the story going in the news. So that's another part of your checklist. So lots of confusing and conflicting information. Don't you remember in the very beginning of the Charlie Kirk incident, this man, Zinn, I believe was his name, that has shown up at other incidents like the Boston Marathon bombing and others, I believe, they get confusing because there are so many that are just sloshed all over us. One of my very astute healthy Americans said, Peggy, this reminds me of a circus in that there's always a clown that's trotted out to distract the audience while they're doing something else, while they're setting up or think of if you've ever been to a magic show or seen something on TV. They bring out a beautiful woman to distract the audience from what the magician or the illusionist is doing. Or they'll bring out animals, or there will be music and something going on so that you're not actually looking where you need to be looking. And by the way, I've actually seen these things where they cut a woman in half in front of my very eyes and then put her back together again. And guess what? It looks real. It's an illusion. And there are other theories about the holograms. I think I was the first person to mention that on my very first broadcast on the day of this incident. And of course, the squib devices that can make it look like you've been shot. Have you ever seen a movie? Have you ever seen somebody get shot in a movie? Do you think that really happened? No, it was stage magic. They call it the craft. Yes, there's a lot of magic involved, meaning occult and not very good or not. No, I don't want any part of it is what I'm trying to say. So all of this conflicting and confusing information and the false alleged perpetrators is all designed to distract you and hijack your thinking brain so that you are unable to discern truth from deception. And remember, deception is deceiving. If it was blatant, everybody could see it. I just happen to be one of those people that can see these things. And I know many of you are as well. And other people need a lot of convincing. They don't want to believe it. And I got to hand it to them because they could never imagine that there would be such evil in the world. They could never imagine that people would want to do something like this. But people do want to do something like this. And I've given you that checklist earlier. They may have been brought up into it. They may actually believe it. They may believe so much in the government controlling people or controlling guns or controlling money or controlling speech or controlling your movements that they are willing to participate in this. Some people do it for money. Some people do it for fame. Some people do it for ego, for control, for power. Some people do it because they were in the witness protection program and they were told, or maybe they were in prison and they were told that they could get a cut, on their deal or their sentencing or something. I think some people really believe it. And so they're willing to do it. They're willing to participate in it. And just because you are an upstanding individual who could never imagine lying or cheating or deceiving or betraying, you know that there are people who do that. And they're doing it to you right now, nonstop, since the beginning of time. So let me continue with my list here. So when it comes to spotting the PSY-OP also, the police and the fire department responses seem off. Even some of these police chiefs and the firemen and the the rent-a-cops or whatever. It doesn't seem realistic. I showed you in a previous video with the Michigan shooting that there was a rent-a-cop that had the suffocation device on, and he doesn't even know what to do with the yellow tape. It's like the producer, who, by the way, was one of the reporters. He's a reality show producer. If you haven't seen my coverage on the Michigan events, you will enjoy seeing those. He's unrolling the tape and taping it, rolling it back up. And there's just civilians walking around under the tape. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. So you need to look for those things. I've pointed out, and it's possible that I'm wrong, but I pointed out many times that when they bring out these cops, many of them are wearing beards. And my understanding is that in many of these precincts, and it definitely is a case-by-case basis, that they need to be clean shaven. So this goes also along with the fact that they are always dropping clues to see if you can find them, or maybe they just want to mock you and ridicule you and demean you because you're not able to pick up on them. So you need to look at the clothing, you need to look at the colors of the clothing, you need to look at the logos, you need to look at the numbers, the time of day, the day of the week that this happened. All of those can be additional clues. And that's kind of a little more of an advanced level because there's so much just right out in the open that even if we don't talk about the numbers and the dates and the colors, it's very obvious just looking at the witnesses and looking at the survivors, meaning the victims' families. I'm going to show you some of these pictures in just a moment. So in the fires in California that have been going on for years, and we're told it's because of global swarming, wouldn't you think in California, if they told us the fires are going to burn hotter and longer and more intense, there's going to be more damage, wouldn't you mobilize every single dollar in California? Wouldn't you raise taxes to have more firemen and more fire trucks and more surveillance and all of that? Oh, no. They always feel like they're caught off guard. Oh, we don't have enough. They're told to stand down. There were no firemen on the scenes putting out fires in Pacific Palisades unless there was a camera on them. And I know family members who lost their homes in that fire. And one in particular never believed what I was talking about all these years. And now she does because she went through it herself and she saw that there was no fire response. So that is usually off. It happened in Lahaina. It's like, what do you mean? All of those things that were just like, oh, we're sorry, it didn't work. Friends, that is almost a slam dunk for you, that's a PSY-OP. Now, these usually happen in a place where they already have some plans in place. So in Lahaina, that's another part of the checklist. In Lahaina, it was already on the books for that to have a transportation corridor right through the center of town, just happened to be where everything was burnt out. And of course, the government wants to take over that land like they do in California, in Paradise, California. That's another key right there for you. Some of these names are also very jarring, like Paradise burnt to the ground, and beautiful Lahaina was also Paradise, and that burnt to the ground. These evildoers want to take something that is innocent and wholesome, like going to church, like going to a ball game, like going to school, like going to a party. Maybe it's on a Christmas holiday or some other holiday, and they'll arrange these horrific events so that you will forever and always have that associated in your mind with something horrible. The names of these things in California, one of them they called the campfire. Now, I grew up camping and we like to sit around the campfire. It was a wonderful time with the family, the end of the day. It was beautiful. But now you've got this association of campfire with houses decimated. So that doesn't always happen, but it often happens. And it's just another one of those things to look for on your checklist. But these places where they take place, for example, the Charlie Kirk incident, that was Utah. They barely have any gun control in Utah, but you bet that's going to change. Michigan has had several of these incidents over the last few years, and they have instituted stricter gun control, just like they do in California, where they also have these red flag laws, meaning you can go to the authorities and say, I think this guy might commit a crime. I think you should take his guns away. Completely unconstitutional and all based on mind reading. And that's exactly what they did in Michigan. You also need to look for the CIA connection. There's usually some kind of CIA operative, like there was in Michigan. The Senator Slotkin was put into office by the gun lobby called Every Town for Gun Safety, because, you know, it sounds a lot better than gun restrictions or illegal gun control. And her job has been for the CIA. She was in CIA intelligence, recruited right out of school, and then she became a senator. How do you like them apples? Another thing to look for, there's usually some kind of active shooter emergency training that just happened. Or you know what? Maybe it happened on the same day. Or you know what? Maybe that's what they were filming and showing us on the news. Because that's exactly what it was in Michigan. And I showed you that there was, in fact, I've got some pictures here for you. I showed you, let me share my screen here and we'll take a look at a few pictures. There was and is the active shooter training right in this town of Grand Blanc. So these are the things that just don't add up. You're telling me that this truck did this damage. There's no tire tracks. So he ran into the wall and then he backed up and he parked carefully. Or you're telling me that a tow truck towed him out and carefully put that evidence and just left it there without any, where's my rent-a-cop? We need some yellow emergency tape around that truck. It's ridiculous. So these things just don't add up. Here's the truck out there. This is a main street right here. Nothing is taped off. And you're also telling me that he started this brick building on fire. And there just happened to be no fire trucks in the vicinity that could put this out. And the brick building basically burnt to the ground. Gee willikers, reminds me of what we saw in California, Lahaina. Let's see, Canada, Texas, Gatlinburg, Portugal, Canary Islands, Greece, just fill in the grand blank with all of the cities and towns where that has happened. Here's another one. You've got the weirdest victims. And by weird, I mean their names. Names that you've never heard with spellings that look unusual. It's so strange. Just as strange as these images that look like they are done through AI. Like, where did this picture come from? Usually when you have a picture, you have to give credit to where that came from. And it has to say photo if it was actually taken with a camera. And we never get the credit of where these photos came from. We never get the credit of where the footage came from, as a matter of fact. Let me get back to my notes here, friends. That's another thing that always drives me bonkers is we were talking about the location. So this is where sometimes it's in a small, sleepy town to traumatize and terrorize the people so that they will be afraid. And that's what they trotted out in the news. Oh, I'm afraid to go to church now. Oh, I mean, it's so bizarre. Usually in the story for your checklist, it's a lone crazed gunman. Or these days they're pushing the transatlantic voyagers angle. So you don't know if it was a man, woman, or what. And these images that they have, I didn't even want to have you be exposed to them. You can see how ridiculous they are. It's like it went through some kind of AI program. They make the chin really long and the eyes really bizarre and the hair a strange color, usually orange, which is another one of their color-coded calling cards. And they also now are doing a lot with veterans because they want to take the guns away from the veterans. And of course, these are random people, random gunmen shooting at random people for random reasons. No reason. Oh, unless they give us a manifesto. They haven't been doing that lately. It's been letters of forgiveness, just like Erica. Oh, we're going to be taking a look at some pictures of Erica. Stick with me. This is a little bit of a longer broadcast live stream here. They're going to push the mental health angle. And you're going to see that again and again and again. In tandem with the mental health angle is it's the government to the rescue. We're going to help you heal. Now, don't be going and seeing your own counselor or don't be going to your own church, for pastoral care. Oh, no, 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 no. The government is going to take care of that for you. We are going to send the counselors. I mean, don't think now your name is going to end up on a list or something, or they're going to ask you if you have guns at home. Oh, yes, that's what parents told me, that when they took their child to the doctor for some unknown reason, first of all, that was your first mistake. Don't take your child to the doctor unless absolutely necessary. And I think in some cases, the parents were getting kind of physical for their child to play sports or something. The doctor wanted to speak to the child. And I'm talking about a 13-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 14-year-old, privately without the parent. And the parents are like, oh, no, 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 no. And what the doctors wanted to do was talk to the child and ask them if there were guns at home, if they were feeling depressed, if they were okay with their parents, if their parents were too strict, and so on and so forth. So this whole thing of the government getting all up in your business regarding your mental health, that would be another big, how do I spell it? And oh, so anytime you see that mental health angle being pushed, that is a huge red flag for me. Another red flag is the gun, the weapon was always gotten in some weird way. Oh, the parents say, well, we just gave him money, but we thought he was going to buy a bicycle. Oh, well, my husband was out hunting, but I guess he didn't lock it up, or he got it on the internet or something. These stories never add up. You know why, and I know why. It's to push the narrative of gun laws that are unconstitutional, unneeded, because yes, oh, the bad guys are going to abide by the laws. You know, and I know that it's not only about the guns, it's about increased surveillance. It's about tracking your every move, your every purchase. And of course, it is about inflicting more government control. And you're easier to control when you are under emotional strain. And that's why they do this. Now, another red flag or another checklist item is the perpetrator, the alleged perpetrator, usually is either killed in a standoff or takes his own life. How convenient, except if they want to have movie of the week, like they're going to do with Charlie Kirk. Now, you may not have been around like I was back in the O.J. Simpson days. And that was a huge made-for-TV production where people were riveted. There was no YouTube back then, so everybody had to actually watch TV or listen on the radio. And that went on for weeks and weeks, and things didn't add up there either. Am I saying that people weren't actually killed? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the bad guys use this, they milk it, they use it for their purposes, including entertainment and mesmerizing the population so they can't go be productive and live their own lives. It's like a giant soap opera. And oh my gosh, just give the list. The Menendez brothers, and it goes all the way back. Any of those, the Manson family, the Hillside Strangler, Jack the Ripper. Friends, it's been going on forever. Use this checklist. Go back to some of those older ones and see if you don't see what I see. All right. We talked about the manifesto that may or may not be there. And of course, it really sounds like it was written by a lone crazed gunman with mental health issues. So bizarre. The other thing that you can notice is the footage. The footage is usually grainy, the videos that we get. You know, NASA tells us that they can show us planets in outer space, and it's more clear than you're seeing me on the computer screen right now. Yet, here on Earth, they can't get a clear image or video. And what about all the people that have their cell phones? Like in the Charlie Kirk incident, we're shown in the beginning, we're told actually that Charlie Kirk is so hated that he feared for his life. Yet there's thousands of cheering people cheering his name, Charlie Kirk, Charlie Kirk. I believe that it was just a few in the front and the rest was AI because it looked fake, phony, and orchestrated. And they had all these people out with their cell phones. Where's all that cell phone footage? Inquiring minds want to know. Instead, we see grainy, faraway footage, and we never hear where it came from. So that is another one of those. Typically, it's going to be AI, or we used to call it CGI, computer-generated images. The witnesses. Okay, let's take a look at some of the witnesses, shall we? They're never credible. The victims themselves, as I say, and the witnesses often have strange names. And there's no social media footprint. Like if you went on their Facebook page or Instagram or something, you can never really find that. So let's look at some of these here that I have for you. All right. Well, this goes on the checklist. These are the parents of the deceased. You can see how bereaved they are. And this was in days after the horrible event in Tennessee. And of course, there was just another one a couple of days ago. They're never going to stop. And I showed you a video a couple of days ago also that these cities belong to the smart cities and the safe cities where they already have on the books what they want to do, which is basically what we're seeing now, taking away your guns. Okay. You may say, Peggy, you caught them at an off moment. All right. I do not see any indelible etch of sorrow that changes a person after they've had a traumatic loss. It's undeniable. And people carry that with them for a lifetime. I don't see it on these faces. Oh, Joel Osteen. This was the day when there was a shooter at his church. I covered that in a video too. Grinning ear to ear. This is the same day. I showed you these previously. His blood-stained shirt, if you can see that. Witnesses, the faces of utter devastation, the Mormon church elders coming on the news a day or two after the incident in Grand Blanc. And you could watch that video. They never stop smiling. This is the day of the Charlie Kirk incident. And here, look at the scroll. It says, Trump confirms Charlie Kirk is dead. What was the cause of death? Who pronounced him dead? Where's the coroner's report? I realize autopsies take a while, but who's performing the autopsy? This poor kid was just thinking about how much money he was going to make. By the way, here we are, Utah Valley University. And Utah in general, I pointed out very early in my videos, is a hub of spooks, another word for the CIA. They have a huge national security program there. Probably all these guys work for the CIA. Maybe they were paid, or maybe they're recruits, or maybe they were just doing it as a live drill. Oh, this goes back some years. Anybody recognize this guy? Not Lutnick. I'm sorry, Lutnick. Lutnick is his name. Howie Lutnick, Secretary of Commerce. Sorry, Howie, you didn't get Secretary of the Treasury, which is what you really wanted. You're second fiddle, even though everybody called you the most hated man on Wall Street. This is a day, well, it's after the 9/11. So this guy is talking about losing basically all of his employees, we were told, in the Twin Towers. He just happened to be taking his son to kindergarten that day. What a quinky dink. And there he is recalling the story. And this is just very, very like immediately after, not like the same day, but soon thereafter, he's talking about the horrible loss. And yeah, this is the guy that's telling you that other countries are paying for the tariffs. Yeah, they're not. Oh, back to Charlie Kirk. I guess he couldn't figure out whether he should cry or laugh. That was the same day. Yeah, you're going to stick around to talk to the news media. These were the deaf students that didn't hear anything or see anything for that matter, but somebody told them about it. But there had to be coverage about deaf students because Charlie, I don't want to be, how do you say when they make somebody mad? I'm not going to use that term, but that's what he did. He made them upset at him, the deaf community, because he said that there should be no deaf interpreters at these events, like for fires and so forth. And so they brought in the deaf students to say, you know what, we love Charlie Kirk. Actually, he didn't really make us mad. They couldn't, you can see the utter devastation. Oh, this was the same day too. So to me, that looks like a green screen. I'm just not seeing that looks like they are really there. And they're sharing their shooting experience. Now, all I can say is I hope that they are 18 years old. It doesn't look like it to me. It is absolutely heinous for the media or the parents to trot out children on the news to relive these horrors. Let's take them at their word. Let's say this really happened. You're going to send your child, and there were younger ones than this, out in front of the news cameras to be re-traumatized by what they went through. Now, obviously, you can see the trauma, the devastation. They're unable to even speak. So, friends, when I see this, I actually don't even need to see any more. I would say the witnesses are probably the ultimate giveaway on any of this. And of course, you know what it's like to experience a tragedy, not just a loss, but a tragedy of unimaginable magnitude in front of the world, we're told, in a horrific way. Yet you would be filled with indignation wanting to find out who took your husband's life. And Of course, you're going to want 2 days later to go in front of TV cameras, in front of a brick wall in Charlie's recording studio. That's right where you'd want to be. You wouldn't want to be with your children who are devastated losing their fake father. Friends, you got to wake up to the truth here if you haven't already. This is not normal. And if you say everybody grieves differently, I would agree with you. And I would also tell you that there's no grief and no grieving going on here. It's despicable and you're being played if you don't see it. This is, may Charlie be received into the merciful arms of Jesus. That is not Christian language. That's not Christian language, friends. The whole thing stinks. Oh, here's another witness going on TV. So excited. I guess he's counting up his paycheck. That was the Charlie Kirk incident. This is the guy that asked the question. And his name just happens to be Hunter Kozak. You know, Hunter. There's no coincidence there at all. Not like Charlie was being hunted or anything. And he's the one that asked that question. He looked this goofy throughout the entire interview. Oh, this guy actually lives in Orem, Utah, in the hotbed of CIA activity. And he also said that he saw this happen right before his fake crying eyes. And this was on YouTube. I'll show you, you can watch it. There he is again. He was on a reality show, friends. He's an actor. I don't know if these guys are actors, but they're pretty bad actors. That was Creighton Baird. I was going to bring you a video on that, but you can probably find it. Oh, here's another one. The search for the suspect. Oh, gee willikers, he's not in my house. This guy said, oh, the cops came door to door knocking on our doors. You see, friends, they're brainwashing you that it's okay for cops to come knock on your door, maybe even come and investigate and search your house in case you are hiding the fake shooter. You can see this guy's so upset with the cops going door to door. Oh, Frank Turek. He was the one that gave Charlie all of the answers to the questions about Christianity. I did a very long video of this guy's, I think nearly his entire fake story. And many of you could see the more he talked, the more he dug himself a hole. He was giving way too much information as though it was rehearsed. And I've got another picture of him somewhere here. I'll come back to him in a moment because there was something very interesting. Anyway, I'll come back to him. This was Charlie's friend and his chief of staff, his first appearance on TV. This is less than a week after his boss and friend, we are told, if you go along with the story, was horrifically gunned down in a political assassination, although there's never been a trial, so we don't know what the reason was and why there was no bullet found and no blood and no burial. But I guess he must be thinking about all the payoff he's going to be collecting. There he is again. They're both yucking it up. Here he's talking about he had to get in the plug. Charlie was just, his new book is coming out, is what he was saying. I did a whole breakdown on this interview as well. I just want to say that Charlie's book is on sale now. And even Bill over here tried to rescue him and talk over that. Like, oh, okay, let's wrap up. We don't want to make it too much like an infomercial. Friends, after my dog died, I couldn't get out of bed for 2 weeks. And then I couldn't even film. And when I did, you could see the deeply etched sorrow in my face because it doesn't go away. These are despicable individuals. This was his producer. This is the Monday after the event, I guess was on a Saturday. This is 2 days later, and there he is producing the show. You're not going to take a week off, even just out of, compassion. Like it's so bizarre, friends. I want you to look at these pictures again and again and really look at them and say, is this the face of sorrow, of pain, of loss, of bereavement, of grief? This was the same show. And save yourself the trouble of leaving me a comment saying, Tucker always does that. He's always that way. Well, then he's a deranged lunatic because this is not what you do. And he said, oh, I'm doing the Charlie Kirk show. And then he said, after Charlie left, he didn't say after he was killed, after he died, after he was shot, after Charlie left. I am going to dig that out for you and I really can't stand covering this guy. He's CIA also. Come on, you guys. I hate to point it out because I thought most people know about it. And here is Erica Kirk. Oh, I'm sorry. No. That's Tammy Faye Baker. Back in the 80s, another scandalous Christian couple. That's not Erica Kirk. There's Erica Kirk. Let me get a bigger picture. She's flipping you off. Oh, Peggy, there you go again. She was just drawing her dry face because there are no tears. And there are no tears. Can I get in there a little larger? There are no tears. What she has are a couple of Masonic rings, the M for the Masons, the G for their logo, their geometry, and the grand architect of the universe. Peggy, those are her children's names. Yes. Gold, diamond encrusted gigantic gold rings with the children's initials. The children that she keeps so private, she's got tons of pictures of them on Instagram, but only the back of their heads. Why would you even do that if you want to be private? Why would you even let the world know? Well, because they had to create the illusion that they were married and had children to make this tug at your heartstrings even more. No tears, friends. Oops, how'd that get there? Oh, what's going on here? There she is again with the symbol. So that's another on the checklist, is look for the symbols. And this is a gesture that probably means something to her that I don't even know. But I do know that she uses it a lot. And I showed you in my video coverage of Erica Kirk's bizarre Instagram photos that she's got her infant doing that sign, and they took a photocopy of it. That's bizarre. And here she's doing it again. She says this was Charlie's cross. And Frank Turek said, we recovered his necklace, I guess, at the scene. So the necklace didn't get blown apart. I guess because he was shot with a BB gun. Here's what I wanted to show you. This is another symbol. He's doing the lion's paw, and that's from Freemasonry. I've been doing a lot of research, working on the coverage and broadcast I'm going to do for you about the Freemasonry symbols. That was I did a survey on my Substack. Number one, you wanted me to do more Charlie Kirk. Number two, you wanted me to do the Freemasonry. Nobody wants me to talk about tariffs, so I won't, but I already have. And I'll just say I was right. And I'm right about this. He's doing the lion's paw, which also has to do with guarding the secrets and maintaining the integrity. And it's just clear for those of us that can see. What else do I have here for you? All right. So there's often the gun, calling for the gun violence, ending the gun violence, because you know how violent guns are. And then, of course, there's always, as I say, these active shooter training companies are on the scene. And then there's always some kind of memorial that they do afterwards. I got to ask you this, because this is really bizarre. Shady Nook, as I call it. Huge wake-up call for most people. No bodies, no blood. I think it was Dr. Carver. Yeah, Carver was the chuckling, jovial physician that came out to make an announcement about the victims. And of course, we had Robbie Parker, who needs to go back to acting school, one of the bereaved parents. But this is what's weird to me. The name of this memorial is called The Clearing. That's despicable. I'm going to say why in just a moment. I want to see if you can come up with a reason. And then, of course, here's the 9/11. There's more on my checklist I'm going to share with you. To call a memorial The Clearing is so bizarre to me. Number one, it sounds like some kind of horror movie, right? The Shining, The Clearing. Number two, it's like if we're being told that the children were mowed down by some crazed lone gunman. like he cleared them out, and you're calling this the clearing. They're mocking the population. They're ridiculing you, not you, because you can see and read between the lines and behind the scenes. But I've got a few more things here for you. So another thing to look for is when you've got these witnesses or the victims' families. They're usually not even the parents. It's usually an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent or a father-in-law or a daughter-in-law or a neighbor. And you never get a full name. You usually just get one name, and they never tell you where that person is, where they live. And that's one of those red flags as well. Of course, the GoFundMe's pop up immediately. Who knows where all that money goes? And not only the GoFundMe's, if this was a legitimate event, but all the scammers that pop up. I mean, think of how many people were scammed sending money in Lahaina and all of that. Not to mention scamming people's hearts and their compassion. Of course, you've got the strong t-shirts, Grand Blank Strong. The candlelight vigil, anyone? All the flowers, posters sometimes. I'm looking for my missing loved one. Well, that's bizarre too. So they come up with these ways and images that they use again and again and again. Sometimes these events will happen on a special date or day of the week. That could have significance, not always. Always to distract you from something else. That's a given. There's a lot of clues that they'll sprinkle throughout. Sometimes it's colors. Like with the cooties hogwash, we saw a lot of that, purple and red. That's what they said the cooties molecule looked like. Well, that was a computer rendering. There's no such thing as a molecule of that pathogen. It doesn't exist. I did a video called Color-Coded Disasters. I think I will refresh that for you and air it again soon because it really goes into it. I show you about Ebola. I show you about the Zika. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's so blatant. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. So of course, not only there's going to be a physical memorial, so you can never forget it, but there will be the movie of the week, probably starring Tom Hanks and Sandra Bullock or something. Yeah, dig a little deeper into their backgrounds. And as I say, no bodies, no blood, no burials, no authentic death certificates. Often these people show back up again. Some of the children in the Shady Nook event, they showed up right like within days. And then we were told, oh no, they have a twin sister. Check into the Challenger incident where most of them are all still alive. I mean, they are just mocking you. Always, always, the solution is to take away more of your freedoms, more of your rights. And actually, they can't really take them away without you giving them up, which means we need to read between the lies. We need to notice these red flags, not be duped and hoodwinked by them so that we can be empowered instead of feeling powerless. And remember, we don't have to prove that something wasn't done. We don't even have to prove how it wasn't done. They have to prove it was. So if you're going to bring this shooter to trial, and if I was the defense attorney, I would say, where's the bullet? Where's the medical report? Where's the blood? How do we know that it missed him? And then when they dropped to the ground, that the, I don't know, maybe the bodyguard stabbed him or something. It was all out of the camera view. Where's all the cell phone footage? I know you don't want to be manipulated, friends. I don't either. And that's why I do what I do here at the Healthy American. Regardless of the topic, I'm at your service. And I do not want to assist the bad guys in giving up and giving over my rights and freedoms, which is why I will continue to expose evil. For those who say, Peggy, that's not very Christian of you. Well, you forgot to read the book of Ephesians, because it very clearly states that we are to expose evil. Most of the Bible is all about avoiding deception, noticing it, and not participating in it. So I can't stand to see people manipulated and deceived. And you're probably like me, you don't take things at face value, especially if it's on the media. splashed all over. That right there is my biggest tip off, along with the witnesses that can't keep a straight face. And you know, it doesn't matter if people are Republican, Democrat, Jewish, Christian, atheist, man, woman. I'm going to dig into all of this. And you know also that AI can make anything look real. Finally, there's no knight in shining armor. You're telling me, here's Candace Owens' new thing, that Charlie was a threat to Israel. Most people in this country didn't even know who Charlie Kirk was. Many of you told me that, ironically or incidentally, leading up to the event, you started getting recommendations in your YouTube playlist. Like YouTube would serve up his videos as a suggested video. Somebody else told me, I'm going to read you that letter a little bit later this week, that they were getting postcards in the mail from Turning Point and they had never signed up or anything. So the media was pushing to get him more in the news and in our vision, so to speak, in our awareness. But you're telling me that Netanyahu, who's willing to genocide an entire people group, if what we're told is true, can't stand up to Charlie Kirk and had to take him out. Friends, that pushes a false narrative that there actually was a bullet and blood and a burial, and there wasn't. And why Candace Owens is ignoring that, I'll leave that up to you to conclude. Thank you, everybody, for being on board. I value you here as healthy Americans. You are willing to assess, to observe, to investigate. You've sent me so many great emails and links and so forth. I can't answer everybody individually, which is why I do my videos. This is where I answer your questions. I do want to take a moment to look here online. I really want to thank everybody for tuning in. And oh my gosh, there are so many comments and they are just flying by. And you know what they want to do is they want to track us. They want to surveil us. They want to restrict us. They want to restrict our speech. And, you know, I'm kind of pretty bold on this video here. I don't think they're going to come down too hard on this because it's pretty apparent what's going on. I do want to bring you a video about the county fair or state fair that's going on in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I need to vet this, but one of my Healthy Americans said that they are going to have drone surveillance and something to do with the QR code, maybe to get in and out. So that's another way of tracking you. Very disturbing. We need to stand up against it. And I think a great way to do that is to just be aware. I went real long, friends. Many of you said you like the longer videos. I do too. My voice just can't keep going. Well, I'm going to give my voice a rest is what I'm trying to say here. Okay, I do need to make a couple of points because you're making some really great comments here. And I've mentioned these before, and I will do more coverage on this. I need to say a couple of things that everybody will hear. Number one, Charlie Kirk's fake dad or real dad or whatever, he did not design and build Trump Towers. Okay, that was a weird Wikipedia thing. I've done my investigation on that. Der Scoot, I think is how you pronounce it, S-C-U-T-T. He's a very famous architect, now deceased. He was the one that designed Trump Towers. I don't know if Charlie's dad did some drawings or something. You can't find anything because it's all buried. We've never heard of the parents, never seen the parents, except for some photoshopped images. And in this day and age of social media, with somebody with that much exposure, you would have seen the parents. How come we've never seen the faces of the children? No one caught a picture of them at one of these events, one of these baseball games that Charlie always went to, all of the other places that they've taken them, which look like staged photo shoots. Very bizarre. How can Charlie be held up as a model husband and father if he traveled nearly every day of the year and was never home? It's hypocrisy. How can Erica call herself an upstanding Christian wife and mother and tout herself as being devoted to her family when you saw she left her children, the fake ones, where? We don't even know, to go on TV and then to go on a podcast and now to be the CEO of this national organization? Doesn't make sense either. None of it makes sense. I've got lots, friends. I've got a notebook full of video ideas that I am working on for you. I pretty much only do one video a day. I did a couple extra videos this week for you. I probably will continue to do that. And I really appreciate all of you here, and I'll see you in tomorrow's broadcast. Would you do me a favor? Double check that you're subscribed and then hop on over peggyhall.substack.com. It's absolutely free. For those that have gone on for a paid subscription, which is like $7 a month, not a week, not a day, I really appreciate you. That's what helps me keep going. And your prayers and your encouragement also bring me such great support. All right, friends, big shout out to the moderators, and I'll see you in tomorrow's broadcast.